So when we don't see other people responding to the things that we try, we take it personal. Oh, why didn't you tell me this a month ago? I could have helped you with this. I don't know. Well, don't you trust me? Well, their actions show you that they didn't, right? But we're going to take that personal, and it's going to affect our relationship as opposed to, oh, kids, why are you getting into trouble? Why are you doing this at school? And, why couldn't you talk to me? You can always talk to me. Well, no, if I talk to you about this, you scold me and you ground me and you put me in my room with no dinner, right? So why the hell am I going to bring that up to you? Right.
Yeah.
And so there's that level of in creating that, opening that door to let people walk through. You can't call yourself an ally. The other person that you're allying with gets to call you an ally. And
Mhm.
until they call you an ally, you are not an ally. You can support a cause. You can support a cause, but until they feel like it's not just situational support, then you're not, you know, you're not what you think you are to them. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep.
And that's the same with as a coach. Hey, I'm a coach. I'm here to help you, right? I'm here to listen to you. And if we are not client centered and we start giving out advice, that's not coaching. That's called mentorship, right?
Mhm.
That like you mentioned, that's called micromanaging, right? And and things like that, where if we truly are client centered, if we truly are, you know, um, in leadership, we're focused on our direct reports and our teams, then we are really facilitating them coming to those answers, coming to their own growth, right? There's something in case management, um, and it's gosh, I can't remember the term right now, but what it says is that, well, it's strength based, right? Strength based means clients and other people generally have the answers to their problems, or generally can come up with those answers to their problems, right? And rather than us telling them something, if we could ask questions and help them get to a level of discovery where they can say that themselves, they're more apt to be able to follow through. It, it's called ethnographic interviewing, right? It's something that child welfare teaches, right? And so ethnographic interviewing states that the client is the subject matter expert in their life. It doesn't matter if they don't have their kids or if they have, an abuse issue or anything else. They know what has worked for them in the past and what hasn't worked for them,
Yeah.
right? And so if you are going in an idea of this will work for them and in their mind this has never worked for me, right? Well, what you just need to get a job and just start with, with minimum wage. I live in a small town, and if I work at that one gas station, everyone's going to see me and ridicule me, right? If we don't get to that level, oh, that's that, bro. Think about your kids. That's a judgment
Mhm.
because that's what I would do, right? And okay, so, wow. So that's a feeling that gets in the way of opening the door to be able to accept those things. So let's talk about how that feels. I had a client one time tell me, I can't work. I have 3 kids and I'm a full-time mom. I don't have any time in the day to work. You ever heard that, Tiff?
Yep.
Yeah. And so my question was, okay, so walk me through your day. She goes, what do you mean? I said, what happens in your day? Well, I get up at 6:30 and I get the kids clothes. I lay them out for them. They get up, they take their showers the night before. They eat their breakfast. They put their clothes on, and then I walk our my middle child to the bus. He goes to a different school. He has special needs, and then I walk my fourth grader and my kindergartner to school. I drop them off. I come back. I clean up after breakfast. I do laundry. And so I have maybe about an hour to myself. And then I pick up my kindergartner from school. I walk up there, pick him up from school, come back, we eat lunch. She tells me how her day went, maybe whatever homework or songs they learned. And by that time, I have to go pick up my second grader at the bus stop. And then they drop him off. And then we both walk up to pick up my fourth grader. And then at the end of the day, I let them play at the playground for a half an hour or so to blow off some steam. We come home, we do homework. And then after homework's done, we get ready for dinner. So I make dinner and, the kids eat, and then we clean up afterwards. They all have to take their showers at night, and I tuck them into bed. I have to tell my kindergartner a story. And so, just I usually go to bed maybe about, 9:30, and then I can't sleep until midnight, right? Because, she hasn't had any time to herself,
Right.
right? Now, that sounds like a full day, doesn't it?
Sure does.
How many of us listening right now say, well, yeah, I do that and I work a full-time job, right?
Yep.
It's a judgment. That's a judgment, right?
Yep.
That's what our brain says. Sure. And that's what my brain said too. But it's like, okay, so it sounds like you have a lot going on, and that is a full day, right? And I don't envy you. That's a lot of stuff that has to go on, right? And so how do you think other people are able to mix that in? I have no idea. I've never done. My mom's always been the stay-at-home mom. My dad always brought home the money. I never thought about it. And now I have these three kids, and I'm just living off of what I thought my mom wanted to do, but I'm single. I don't know what to do.
Yep.
Is that a real situation people are in? Maybe not us, but if it's not real to us, then we don't feel like it's a real issue. We feel like it's an excuse.
Right.
Being client centered says they have a lot of shit going on. And we have to acknowledge that and help them recognize that, yes, there's a lot going on. And at the same time, you know, how can these things that we are asking them to do or offering them to do actually benefit their lives? So, but that's a series of questions. You can't tell somebody getting a job is going to make your life better. You can say that until the cows come home, right? But maybe all their jobs, none of their jobs have been fulfilling in their lives, right?
Hmm.
I know people that in their 50s and 60s that have never had a job that they enjoyed.
Right. Well,
I've
I
met
mean,
people.
not even like the fulfillment part of it, which is, important, but I don't know what anybody else's circumstances. I don't know how much childcare costs these days. I'm sure it's ridiculous. But there are people who, if I have three kids, paying for childcare is going to be more than what I earn. So sometimes staying home and taking care of your kids is a good financial decision. So,
We
like,
saw it a
who
lot
am
during the
I to
pandemic.
judge? Yeah. Who am I to judge? So, we can have those different conversations. I love the idea of asking questions, but they can't be gotcha questions. They have to be like curious, flexible, open-minded questions where you really like tell me more about if things stay this way, like what will life look like for you when your maybe benefits run out? And what's your plan after these 5 years where you're not going to be eligible to get these benefits anymore? How are you going to still be able to maintain your lifestyle? And if going to work isn't an option for you, what are some other things that you can do that are going to get you prepared for maybe when your kids are a bit older and you have a little bit more flexibility, right? So it's really just opening up possibility without like you're not searching for a specific answer. And I have to tell you, I'm sure you've experienced this as well from a coach's perspective. That's really hard to do is to not have in your mind like what you're looking for, like to let that go. Like it comes and you got to let it go. So when you were talking about creating the environment earlier, so many thoughts I had like 400 thoughts come to my mind. Look at how good of a listener I'm being today. Because I had like shoo, 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 all these things that were coming to mind, but I was trying to be client focused, practice what I preach. One of the things that you were talking about earlier that you brought up was like the person who has to be the one to speak up because there's inconsistencies. And that is such a real thing from both a human services perspective, a leadership perspective, where people feel like they can't share their reality without being judged because they've been judged. They've been judged. This is like the deterioration of trust. One of the classes I was doing this week was the beginning of a leadership series. And one of the things that I ask people to reflect on in this leadership series is like, who do you want to be as a leader? Like, essentially, the way I ask this question, my very Tiffany way, is when people talk about you behind your back, what do you want them to say about you? Right. And so, um, So then I connect that back to, okay, so whatever you decide, right? It's your decision what kind of leader you want to be. You have to have behaviors that support that decision. And so in the course of this class, one of the people stayed behind and she said, because we talked about belonging, we talked about being authentic and not trying to fit in, but really trying to like be who you want to be and who you are. But within the leadership scope, there are certain things that you have to adapt, still being authentic, but you have to adapt to fit like the new role that you're in. And again, not letting go of who you are, but again, making yourself effective, whatever that looks like. So she came to me afterwards and she says, I really thought about the idea of being authentic, but being able to adapt to this new role. And she's like, I have gotten in trouble or have gotten feedback like so often about being too much of an advocate for my kids, the client, the kids in our care. And she says, and I always get pissed off when I get like, oh, you're going too hard for the client. You have to keep in mind the business needs. And I said, no, 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 please never change. That was a judgment for but please don't change. Don't change advocating for the kids, because the other thought I had when you were talking is this idea of that lack of trust and that lack of ability to feel like you can speak up when things are not consistent or things are not right. Patrick Lencioni calls this artificial harmony. I go along with it. I know it's not right. I feel it in my gut that it's not right. And I say nothing because I don't want to make waves. But then that leads us to keeping the status quo of the way things are. I want, from a leadership perspective and from a human services perspective, I want people who are passionate and advocate for the needs of the people that we're here to serve, whether it be kids, adults, families. I want people who care about the bottom line, which is that kids are safe, we reduce their trauma, like all of those things. And so from my leadership perspective, I would never ever, hopefully ever judge somebody for advocating for the needs of their people. And at the same time, from a leadership perspective, and my discussion with her is don't change that aspect, but what can you do to be more effective at it? And that's like the shift, like being client centered is you really care about advocating for your clients. And if the way that you're doing it is not getting you what you need, how can you shift the way that you advocate for your clients to be more effective, right? And so this is like that balance for people of what's important to me, right? This is the client centered part, like really being able to uncover what is it that you want, what is it that you need, and then following up with how are you going to make that happen? Let's look at some options, right? I'm not going to tell you what those options are, but like what choices do you have? What works? What have you seen work for other people? Whatever it is. And so I think that's like an important part of this work that we do in having this mindset that again people can be who they are and still develop skills to be more effective, right? And still uncover what they want and what they need, and then develop the systems that are going to help them get to that point. And it takes time. And again, I might have an idea of how to do it, but it's not for me to determine that path because people have their own strengths, their own experiences, their own things. And that I think is important. Going way, 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 way back to what you started to say in the beginning about creating the environment and like I can want belonging, but I can't decide when someone feels like they belong. Um, you ready for my daily givingthegiftcoaching.com? One of the reasons that I name my coaching business givingthegiftcoaching.com. But one of the thought behind the giving the gift actually came from an article that I read like back in the early 2000s, and it was published actually in 1994 by a former UC Davis instructor. Her name is Lorraine Fox, and she's been published in some different journals. She was very active in child welfare and group home settings. You know, now what we know as STRTPs, but she wrote an article again that was published in the 90s called Take This Job and Love It, the 10 A's of Job Happiness. And I came across this probably at a really pivotal point in my career where I needed and was open to the message. And one of the things that she said in this article was really about like loving people, not romantic love, but like loving humanity and loving people for who they are. And she said, with love, you keep giving the gift, even if it remains unopened. And when I tell you, like, oh, like those words like resonate, I've never forgotten them. And I think about that as part of like my lifestyle and the way that I choose to be with people is that I will keep giving you the gift of my generosity, and I will keep giving you the gift of my non-judgment, and I will keep giving you the gift of being authentic, even if you don't want it. Right? Like, I'm not going to necessarily base my engagement with you on whether or not you accept it from me, in the sense that, like, if I want to be really a non-judgmental person, in the sense I don't want to make you uncomfortable, then I'm going to be open to acceptance, like extreme acceptance for all things, even if you don't believe that it's genuine. I'm going to still keep doing it. I'm not going to become defensive and say, well, you're not open to the love I'm giving you, therefore I'm going to withhold this love. No, I'm going to keep being consistent in what I think is the right thing to do until you decide to open that gift. Like, that's, I'm going to keep being kind to you even if you don't accept my kindness. I'm going to keep being generous again to you, even if you don't accept that generosity. I'm going to keep offering my support, even if you don't take my support. And that's where the giving the gift coaching came from, is that I will continue, I will give that gift, even if you don't love it. um, and with that too, but it's reciprocal, because I also will accept the gifts that you give me, the gift of your time, the gift of your perspective, the gift of your experience, the gift of your feedback. I'm open to that just as much, even if I don't love it all the time. I'm going to take that and use that as a way of growing and developing and becoming better. And that kind of leads into this other idea of having a coaching mindset, is the ability to engage in a reflective practice. And for me, when I think about reflective practice, it's me as an individual and a professional to really think about my behavior in a way that says, what's working well and what do I need to do better? Where am I really like finding strength, and where do I have some areas of weakness that I can develop and learn, and never getting kind of stuck in a pattern of behavior without really thinking in a really genuine way, is this working not just for me but for my clients? Is this working for the staff that I support? Is this working for the clients that I work with in the public? And not getting stuck in patterns where I'm unconsciously doing the same things over and over again with no feedback. And so if the feedback is not coming from directly from the people, right? My clients, which again, this is where we should be accepting feedback, is from our clients. I have to be willing to be vulnerable enough with myself to say, what's leading me to the results I want? So if I'm looking to create belonging, do people feel safe? How do I know? Or what are these behaviors that I have? Maybe I have good intentions behind them, but they're not leading to what I want. What can I do differently? And so it's this constant idea of growth and becoming better for the people that I serve, not just for my own personal well-being, which is also part of it, but really thinking about what's the impact I'm trying to make, and am I doing a good job at that? And what can I shift to get better?
Yeah, constant evaluation, right? I mean, if we ever stop growing, then
We die.
yeah, or at least our ideas and our support and our empathy
Mhm.
dies, right? So really, I mean, how am I getting better? What else do I need? What I need to know, right? I know some people who have had, the same content and use it over and over for the last 10 years. And there's some new stuff out there, right? I mean, just, which totally translates to what we're talking about. I mean, when it comes to leadership, well, when I was coming up as alliance staff, my supervisor wasn't so supportive. He wasn't always listening to me and having these regular meetings with me and checking on how I'm doing. And I mean, I didn't need it. Why did these people need it? Well,
Mhm.
you know, I I didn't get it either, but it doesn't mean that now that we know, you know, about neuroscience and we know about, our needs and our human desires and our wants and what helps us to become more engaged and more committed. I wish I'd have known that 30 years ago, and now that I know it, you know, how can it help? Right.
Right.
I mean, that
Well,
can
yeah,
only
yeah,
help. So if we're stuck in the way it's always been done, how is that getting in the way of how things can get done better or more efficiently or even enhance the way things have been done with new information? Oh, no, no. No,
yeah.
I know what I know.
Well, just so you know, not that long ago, we also used to put lead in paint. We also used to insulate with asbestos. There's all kinds of things that we used to do. We used to, be able to smoke cigarettes in restaurants. There's lots of things that we used to do that just we found out later. Guess what? Not so great. So, did I sit in smoke-filled smelly markers?
Yeah, they used to get you high, remember when you were kids,
Now they're
now
just
they're
boring.
non-toxic, now they're boring. That's what I tell people all the time. Here's the markers. They're not as fun as they used to be when we were kids, but they still smell good.
Squirrel. Okay, squirrel. Do you know? I bought so by the way, if anybody's ever an instructor, you have to have smelly markers. It's the requirement. I don't know, it's a law. It's a law somewhere. I bought the extra mucho grande variety pack of smelly markers. And I just want to let you know there's a nacho cheese flavored smelly marker. And I just want to know who was on the board of directors that said that's a great idea. You should have a nacho cheese scented freaking smelly marker. It smells like jalapeno juice. That's what it smells like. See, you have it. There's a nacho cheese one in there.
And there's a butter popcorn one in there. It's just foul too. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's some disgusting ones. So sorry we went down that rabbit hole. But I guess for people who are like, you know what, we just don't have enough nacho cheese smelly writing utensils. Good for you. I'm glad. I look at me being judgmental again. Look at me being judgmental again. I just want to know what happened in that boardroom that they said the nacho cheese marker. That's a must. That's a go-to. It
It's
doesn't
not
make any
your
sense.
favorite, is it?
It's
So
not. It's not my favorite. It doesn't smell bad. Like it doesn't smell bad, but in my experience of sniffing smelly markers, I've never been like, you know what's missing? Nacho cheese.
mhm,
Nacho cheese is definitely like that will really make my learning experience more. I I don't know. Sometimes it goes too far, is what I'm saying.
mhm. Yeah, I'm waiting for the soy sauce. We need more umami markers. Yes. So let's yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
okay. Since we're down this rabbit hole, we've already lost all control. We'll come back to flexible. By the way, flexible is part of the coaching mindset. But you know how Lay's does the like you can create a flavor with Lay's. Like every year they come out with four new ones. I don't really keep up with them anymore because I don't know. I don't eat potato chips very often, so I haven't kept up. But if anybody from Frito Lay or whoever is on the board, if you could bring back the chicken and waffle Lays, I would really appreciate that. Like I'd like who do I write to get chicken and waffle Lays back? Because those were actually quite delicious. My mouth just watered right now thinking about the chicken and waffle.
You see my face. I'm judging. I'm
You
judging.
can judge, but you know what? On the serve, I would try them for the sake of trying, right? Because I'm like, oh well, I don't want to judge them unless I try it, and I'll see if they're any good. But they had like the perfect balance of sweet and salty, which is like my favorite combo. Like they had a little bit of maple syrup tang to them, but not enough to be overwhelming. And then the chicken part of it was kind of like a bouillon, like umami flavor, but they it was really well balanced and quite delicious. And when they didn't have them anymore, I was really kind of sad. And that's why I think probably I haven't tried many of the new ones recently because I don't want to get attached just to get my heart broken again. Um, But if anybody has like a warehouse of chicken and waffle lays that you want to, I'll put them on the shower laundry bus. Well, sponsored by Frito-Lay. I don't even know if Frito-Lay is the company. I have no idea who owns anything,
It's
unless I'm
Frito-Lay, yeah.
boycotting them. Unless I'm boycotting them, then I know. But I really like those chicken and waffle lays there, and but I don't like nacho cheese scented smelly markers. So I'm glad we cleared that up. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Sorry for that.
So
Squirrel.
I don't mind a squirrel. So too many squirrels and too many squirrels.com. No, that's a Facebook page. We don't have a .com. Um, that's the name of my band, right? Too many
Yes.
squirrels. Yeah.
Yes.
So just thinking about going back to those pieces of the coaching mindset, and ethical practice, right? And so just think about that idea of being curious. What do you do? What do you do intentionally to put yourself in a mind frame where you are curious? Because we already know that our brain doesn't want to be curious. Our
Mm-hmm.
brain wants to know what it wants to know. What do you say to yourself? What do you say to yourself internally, externally? How do you prepare to be more curious?
Well, okay. So for me, I think it's a little bit easy because I'm naturally nosy. And I think I just have a curious mind in general. Like I really like to understand people. This is part, I think, of the question you asked earlier about what did I learn as a kid? Like people really like to talk and to share their perspective. And so I'm always like looking for like where people are coming from because I find it fascinating. Um, like I want to know how you got to your conclusion. I'm curious. So like one of the like statements that I remind myself is when I think I've been curious long enough, I should be curious just a little bit longer. And so when I think I have a good idea of like where someone's coming from, maybe ask one or two more questions to really solidify it. Um, but to always keep in mind like people tell you parts of the story and unless you're really curious you're not going to get the whole thing, and again we stay on the surface as a coach specifically. What I've learned is like to not stay on the surface but to really dig deeper, and the only way that we can get people to get beyond the surface thinking and dig deeper is if I stay curious. And so that's like part of my mindset when I'm coaching is that I keep in mind like the first few questions as we start to like uncover the topic or uncover the challenge or really think about the goal. It's very surface level, but if we're really looking for improvement and if we're really looking for um like transformational change, that we've got to be a bit deeper. And so it's not even just about me being curious, but it also is for me evoking curiosity in the other person to really think about what they want, why they want it, and what's kept them where they're at, and have them really open up their mindset as well. And
Now,
so
how often do you have that where you have a coaching client and you ask them a question and like, I've never thought about that. That's a good
all the time,
question. Yeah.
can I tell you that's the high that I'm going for? That is okay. I'm going to be honest. Like as an instructor, like what I'm looking for in people is for them to go, oh yeah, yeah, I can do that, right? Oh, that makes sense, right? So connecting like the dots and then like finding a skill that they're going to practice, that's like the high that I go for as an instructor. Like, oh, when you said that, it made me think about this, and this is what I'm going to do moving on. I'm like, yes, right? High five myself. Like I'm really loving it. As a coach, the high that I'm looking for as a coach, and there, to me there's like this almost universal body language that comes with it when someone goes huh,
Hmm.
and then they start to look into the heavens for their answer like huh, I never really thought about that. I'm in the background smoking a fake cigarette like oh, that moment is like what I, that it's that's it for me. So that it's maybe selfish. That curiosity is like getting people past the surface and helping them delve into their curiosity. that's how I remember it. Like when they get beyond what they're already believing, that's when we were really making progress. That's the high that I'm looking for. Look at I'm coughing from my fake cigarette. That one I inhaled that one too. But
Well,
that's what I don't know if there's something that as a coach, Carl, that like gets you when you know like I got it. When I get that's the moment where I'm just like I nailed like got it. That's what I was looking for is that breakthrough.
well, when I ask a question and there's that silence, that's for me, that's fulfilling, right? Because that
Yeah.
means that person's thinking about something that maybe they don't usually think about. They don't have an answer to it. Cool. One of the challenges we have to be aware of is when we ask a question, whether we are a coach, a manager, or a case manager, when we ask somebody a question, that we allow for the space for them to be able to come up with their own answer, right?
Hmm.
Which is difficult because our brain wants to not have space. We don't want silence. We don't want the quiet. It's unnerving. It's unnatural in the way that we have regular interpersonal conversation. And I mean, just I always think about Pulp Fiction and that part in the movie in Pulp Fiction. Don't you just hate that that quiet, right? That uncomfortable silence. There's nothing worse in the world. A lot of people feel that way, right? And so, what do we do when we ask a question? Tell me about some of the challenges you're facing. Is it maybe your spouse? Is it maybe the job that you're doing, right? So we lead people into answers, right? And very often so they don't have to really delve into it. Oh yeah, 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 that's right, right? And so and very often they'll just say that's right because they want us to feel like we are on the same page, right? And so we have to allow for that silence. It's okay to say, you've been quiet for a while. What are you thinking about,
Yeah.
right? That's a good way to evoke somebody actually verbally telling you how they're feeling rather because not all of us, brainstorm verbally, do right? Extroverts, we do it all internally,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, what's going through your mind right now? What are you experiencing? That's a real cool way for someone who doesn't always feel like um they want to share with you. You're giving them permission and inviting them to share and letting them know that I'm hearing you and I'm not looking for the right answer. I'm want to know your thought processes on this, right? So, just oh, I haven't thought about that. Okay. How you doing? Here, what are some things that are going through your mind right now?
Hmm.
Right. At five, just and I probably said it, and I say it God, I probably say it 3 times a week. It takes us 5 to 7 seconds to formulate a question or a comment in our head on it in general, and we give people less than a second to come up with that question,
Hmm.
right? And so, just think about situations that you've been in where someone asked you a question and really didn't give you the chance to come up with your answer. Or when you're in a situation where somebody doesn't have an answer right away, do you fill that space? And do we do that? Why do we do that? And how often is it because we feel uncomfortable, right? With
That was
silence.
yeah. That was actually some of the feedback I got from when we like if you've gone through our coaching program that we went through, we do a lot of practice coaching. So you get paired up with other people in your class and you practice the skills over and over again. And so very early on, I got paired with a person who she was more introverted. And I'm very extroverted. I'm a verbal processor. This is um, obviously I think out loud. And so even as I'm being coached, it may take me a long time to even get to what I want because I'm like, I got to go through the whole like everything I'm thinking about the topic. I'm like verbal vomit, you know. Um, and so again, working with this really smart, wonderful woman that I was paired with, she was very introverted, and so when I would ask questions, um, I would give her like a few seconds. And then if she didn't answer, I would ask her the same question, but in a different way, kind of like, well, maybe you didn't understand what I was asking you here. Let me rephrase it for you. And um, the feedback she shared with me afterwards was so powerful because she's like, you ask really, really good questions, but as someone who's like introverted and I need time to process, it would be really helpful if you would give me more time to come up with an answer. And I thought, again, you don't know what you don't know. Like I didn't even realize. I thought I was being really patient because those like 5 seconds before I rephrased the question again, to me felt like an eternity. But for her, she was still kind of processing what I was even asking her to be able to like pull from her thoughts and her feelings and her emotions and her experiences to know like how she felt about what I was asking her. So that was like that's like one of the biggest takeaways I got from I got so many good things from my coaching sessions, but that one person like being courageous enough to tell me like shut the hell up and let me answer was a great thing. And I think about that too in my curiosity. Curiosity is about asking the questions, but curiosity also includes like being humble enough to wait for them to answer in the way that they're going to answer without you inputting your own spin on it. And I think that was a real moment of growth and something, by the way, I still struggle with, but it's something I have to intentionally practice. Like sometimes I have to even just like do something in my mind, like count or, like think about my breath, like do breath work where I'm like just inhaling, exhaling to not verbally interrupt their thought process while they're thinking about their response. And that's not it's not as easy as it seems.
No, no, because that's not what we've been taught,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so if you ask me what my thought process is with being curious, my first thought is it's not about you.
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
about you. I know how you're feeling about this, but this person, it's about how they're feeling, what they're experiencing.
Right.
Right. So it's not about you and what's going on with them right now. And that keeps me focused on listening to them and listening intently. It's a mix, curiosity and client focused. Let me tell you something that was one of the greatest breakthroughs that I had in going through the coaching class. I'm always usually good at asking open-ended questions. I've been practicing active listening and teaching active listening for years. Um, One of the things that I recognized was if I'm not careful, I will ask open-ended questions based off of my thoughts. I can manipulate open-ended questions to get people to answer the things that I want them to answer in a specific way, right? So, if somebody wants to quit drinking, okay, so why do you want to quit drinking? Well, because of this and that. Okay, so how is it going to benefit you to quit drinking? Okay, well, but my husband wants to do that. Okay, so, what would be something that, you would want to do if your husband doesn't want to stop drinking, right? Because in my mind, I'm like, well, you need to leave that man, right? So
Hmm.
I'm leading them down a slippery slope of, you need to drop that enabler, right? When the conversation, it's just like, why I can't work, I'm a full-time mom, you know, my curiosity, if I'm not careful, will be to answer those questions and okay, how can you mix in a full-time job? Because that's what you got to do. So I want them
Hmm.
to verbalize that as a plan. Cool. But if we go there first without them really exploring how they're feeling about things, what has worked, what hasn't worked, if they are on board, and are they on board with us or are we on board with them? Right. That's the thought. So I recognized I can ask open-ended questions that lead to my conclusion. And so I have to be doubly aware to not manipulate the conversation. When we first started talking, you talked about coaching being a racket, right? And I know you say it's a racket because
Scam.
what do I do? It's a scam, right? So in my mind, how do I justify it? I get people to come up with the right answer. And if I can ask open-ended questions to get them to the right answer, then I've done a good job. But that right answer is my right answer.
Hmm.
It's not their right answer, right?
That's
You
right.
know, I've spent 25 years in social services, right? So if I'm working with somebody, from Cal OSHA, are my experiences and my leadership and my experiences with my clients, is that going to directly translate to people working out on a construction site and doing evaluations and having, labor laws? No. So I have to take off, even though I'm there in front of them teaching that class or coaching them, I have to take off that hat of expert and give it to them because I need to know. It's the same thing with, it's even in social services. A lot of my background was in eligibility and CalWorks, right? And welfare to work. And so I do a lot of work with child welfare social workers. And I used to be afraid of doing that because I didn't have that level of knowledge that they did. And I felt like I was at a deficit. And I'm at the point now where the conversations I'm having, they're topics that translate to so many different places. So rather than me saying, so this is what this means if you're in adoptions or if you're in foster care, it's how does this translate to you and what you do in foster care or in adoptions or
Hmm.
when you have a team meeting? How does tell me how this topic works in that meeting, right?
Right.
And so this is a conversation that now people are having in the classroom where they're not leaning on me to give them the right answer. They're leaning on each other to give them the right answer because they have so much more experience in what it is they're doing than me. And I may not give them the answer that works for them. Right. And so it's really something where I have become very comfortable. I think it's the older I get, the less I always say there's no ego in this. I really am starting to feel like there's no ego in this. Right. And if I'm teaching an 8 hour class and people are in, well, 6.5 hours, but if I'm teaching a 6.5, 7 hour class and I'm speaking 2 hours of it and the rest, people are having conversations with each other and going through activities or watching videos from other experts, I used to think I'm not doing my job well enough. I'm not
Hmm.
really putting in the time. I'm not putting in the effort. You mean we just had an hour-long coaching conversation and I spoke maybe 5 minutes? And you said, thank you, that really helped. How did that help? I
Right.
need to interject. I need to show them my competence, right? Um, Lamar, and I'm going to directly quote it, and I'm going to put it on the bottom third of this video. But he said something that struck a nerve with all of us in the room on Tuesday. Everybody in that room, the most experience that people had had in leadership was 2 years. Everyone was 2 years and below. And he was talking about the challenges that comes in when you feel like you need to justify your position, right? And he said, you're growing, you're getting better. You're not going to be as good today as you will be tomorrow. And he said, do not let your idea of your competence affect your confidence,
Mm.
right? So do not let your idea of competence, your competency, your level of what do I know affect your confidence in your ability to do your job. And one of the supervisors said, I'm writing that down. She wrote it down. And we referred to it maybe 6 or 7 times, and even Lamar, he said that was just a Lamar Henderson original, it just came off the top of the dome. And so he went back to her. What did I say that breaks us? But it was so profound and it's so true. What happens when you feel like you don't have to have all the answers?
Right.
What growth happens not just with the people that you're working with, but within yourself. When you realize you don't have the answers, you don't have all the answers. Think about how do I get better? right? There's a concept, called epistemic privilege. I know I keep going back to it. It's what I know is what I know through what I've learned, what I've experienced, who I've talked to. And so I have this knowledge base. And I may have been doing this for 30 years and I have this deep knowledge base, right? But transcendence is another topic that says the amount that I know is just a speck of what there is to know in the world, in the universe. Because what I know is what I know for myself. If I'm not accessing other people, if I'm not accessing that person who's in my caseload that is homeless, I've never been homeless, but I'm putting all these judgments on them, and I've never asked them what they're experiencing. Or if I'm if I'm a boss and I keep scheduling my for the emergency response call center, I keep scheduling my worker who is not married and doesn't have kids on Thanksgiving because everyone else wants to be with their families. Am I limiting that person's ability to maybe access their mom and dad or maybe their brothers and sisters, right? And I'm going based off of what I know. Well, families need to be together. Well, this person, are you sure that this person doesn't have family or people he thinks is family, right? I'm an only child, right? But I have a little brother and a little sister who I grew up with, and I've known for over 40 years. And I've had people in my life that say, well, they're not your brother and sister.
You don't know
And
about my life?
yeah, and so I said, well, okay, not my blood brothers and sister, but I call them. Well, you can't call them your brother and sister because technically they're, I mean, they're and I want to tell them, okay, well, that's your opinion, and it's not going to stop me from calling them my little brother, my little sister. But it used to make me think, well, maybe I can't, maybe I shouldn't. I don't want to offend somebody. This is my experience. You know, what would the question have been? So why do you call them your brother and sister? And
Mm-hmm.
that might be different than my experience. Let me tell you about my experience. Okay, now we're having a conversation and we're
Right.
learning from each other. All right. Don't take it personal. If you got six brothers and sisters and you love them to death, and they're the only people in life that you've ever called brother and sister, you know, don't get butthurt that I call, two of my best friends, my little brother and my little sister.
Yeah.
We might have different experiences, different places, but it's okay. It's okay. It's
Yep.
not about you, right?
I agree. I agree. Um, I was when you were talking about not being the expert, it made me think of a really good book. Um, Change Your Questions, Change. Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I say it right. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life, um, by Marilee Adams. And it's a really interesting read about, again, not having to always have the answers and really like learning how to ask really good questions. And I think that this is part of that non-judgment. I think when we rely too heavily on our judgment, we're coming up with the answer before we've even asked the questions. And so I think the road to like curiosity and the road to not being the expert and the road to being client centered and all of these other things is really just to ask. If we're doing all of the telling, it's not a coaching mindset, right? Like that's a whole different role. And I think that leaders and human services professionals and coaches can all benefit from the idea to ask before you tell and not ask necessarily, why did you do that? What were you thinking? Those are really like judgment laden questions, but to instead really genuinely be curious where the other person is coming from and not from a perspective of, I'm going to see if you're right or wrong. But really just to understand somebody else's mindset, understand somebody else's process, understand their experience or their perspective or the way that they are viewing what just happened. We can experience the same scenario and have very, very different interpretations of that. And so um, I think that for me as both a coach, a leader, and someone who works with, again, human services professionals, the curiosity is giving people space to really own their experience and to reflect on their experience and to help them, by the way, in owning their experience and talk about their experience. And um, it also helps them be more curious and open-minded and flexible, which is what we're hoping for. So I'm a huge fan in 2025. Let's have a coaching mindset, in all aspects of our lives, and really just be thoughtful and curious about what other people are experiencing, being flexible in your approach to things, like being willing to engage in a reflective practice and be responsible for your own learning and awareness, and really embrace this idea that, again, we're not all the same, but we don't have to be. And even in our differences, that people are allowed to be their authentic selves and still be accepted and still belong to this beautiful society that we're trying to grow and develop. We've been detached and polarized for far too long. And how's that working for us? That's what I want to know. How's that working for us? As again, me and poor Carl had to hear me rant about all of the things that I'm upset about today. That's some reflection that I want to do. So
I put that down as a practice coaching session. So don't worry about it. That goes to my ACC hours. So yeah.
oh, perfect, perfect. Thanks for that. Thanks for
All right.
that.
So Tiff, we always have Tiff's revs. I
Tips
wanna
riffs.
I wanna I wanna offer some.
Yes, please. I'm going to delegate to you today. I'm open minded and flexible, Carl. Take it away.
We'll call it the Doc's Rocks, right? Right.
Or not.
The Doc's Rocks. Rocks like diamonds, like Miss Diamond Elite over here,
Oh,
right?
okay. You
Yeah,
want to be
right.
me so
So
bad. You want to be
that's
me
right.
so bad. It's
I
fine.
want I want to bling bling. Yes. All right. So just taking away from the conversation, for me, there's a few things that really are important to 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 have in your mind in those situations. First, it's not about you. When you're in a position of authority or of assistance or of leadership and guidance, it is not about you. The second is, what have I learned about this person? And what else do I need to know? What else do I need to learn? And the third, common sense ain't common. So stop saying it. Well, common sense said you would do this. That's your common sense. That's your common sense you have from your family and your parents and your household, in your neighborhood and your community, right? And if you really think about it, do you have the same idea of common sense that your little brother who grew up with you has? Probably not. So if that's not true, why would somebody who grew up 800 miles away from you or 8,000 miles away from you know exactly what you're thinking,
Mhm.
right? So it's not about you. What have I learned about this person? And common sense ain't common. I think if we keep those, for me, that's what works for me. I'm not trying to judge you if you don't want to go with those, but those are, if you're looking for things that work
I
for me,
accept.
that's, accept that challenge, right? So,
I accept. Okay. One last squirrel. I'm sorry. Those are good. Carl, Doc's rocks. We'll go with that. But since you said challenge accepted, I have to be judged. Can we end on a space of judgment right now? It has to do with the challenge. It has to do with the challenge. This is a show that Carl and I both enjoy. But let me tell you, I tried to watch the Challenge All Stars, the very first season. I
yeah.
tried. And this was all of like the people who competed in like the early 2000s. And they're all like in their mid to late 40s. Like one of the reasons I love the challenge is I love to sit and watch these young, fit, gorgeous people compete and then judge them and say, like, I could have totally beat Johnny Bananas in that puzzle, right? Like I know I can't, but in my mind, like I can judge, like, oh, if they only would have done the balance beam a little bit better, they could have totally won. What a loser, right? Like that's why I love the challenge. But when I watched the challenge All Stars, I couldn't judge because I was like, I can't judge them. They're my age. Like I have in my mind when I'm watching it that I could totally win the challenge, but watching the All Stars makes me realize, like, yeah, no, I never could win the challenge, and I don't like the way that affected my self identity, and so I had to shut it off
So you
because
take
the
it
way my
personal. You
I
take it
did take it
personal.
personal. The way my osteoporosis is set up, I can't be doing this. And watching just on the very first challenge, them trying to swim and get these blocks underwater, and they were all drowning, and the medics had to come out. I was like, you know what?
Poor
I
Coral
can't
almost
watch
died
this.
out there. Yeah, I remember
I
that.
said
Yeah.
I can't watch this. It hits too close to home. I want to go back to the young, sexy, idiot people. They're not idiots, they're actually really smart people. But I want to go back to judging these people that have far better skill sets than me from the comfort of my couch while I eat C's candy and judge. So I couldn't watch it.
Can I piggyback off of that?
You sure can.
So I was watching the final of the last season, season 40,
Don't
right?
tell me what it is yet, because
Not
I
gonna tell you
just
what it
finished
is.
39. I just finished
Okay.
39.
Well, one of the challenges that they have, and not to spoil, but everything's on a boat. The
Right.
final challenge, the what TJ's whatever he calls it,
Yeah.
right?
TJ's
TJ's
final.
final.
Hmm.
TJ's final.
Yeah.
It's on a boat. So they're swimming everywhere. They're hiking and then coming back and swimming. And one of the challenges was they were doing a speed math. And so, and they were pretty, I mean, like he goes 8 times 6 divided by 3.
Hmm.
And every single one of them I got before them. And it was in real time. So it wasn't edited. So I was
Right.
like, I could get that. But then you know what I couldn't get? I couldn't have got the fact that they swam a mile from the boat to the freaking island and then had to get out puffing and puffing and solve a math equation and then jump back in the water after they solved the math equation to get back to the boat. That wouldn't have been me. So,
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
about, oh, I could do this. I could do
Listen, I know I can't do it. I don't need it shoved in my face, okay? I want to have the guilty pleasure of sitting on my couch and saying, "Ah, that was just 4.6 miles uphill. How come you can't put that puzzle together? It's so
in the
easy. Put
snow.
the five,
Yeah.
yeah, uphill both ways. You know what? You should have played a better social game. You shouldn't have paired up with Jay because Jay's a snake. Jay and Michelle are snakes. Don't be pairing up in their alliance. That's what I wanted to do, and I literally couldn't do it when I was just like, give them some ibuprofen. They're really suffering right.
Don't challenge
So,
CT. Don't challenge CT in the
oh,
elimination. Don't do it. Right. Anyway, so yeah. What's
CT,
wrong with them?
CT's my challenge boyfriend. I love CT.
I
CT, if you're listening,
figured you were a CT kind of guy. The kind of gal.
oh,
So
I am CT all the way. CT when he was buff,
um,
CT when he was fluffy, CT now. CT could get it. Let me tell you, I love CT.
and on that
Sorry. All
note,
right.
folks,
I think it might be time. I'm we're talking about my challenge boyfriend now. I think it's time to go.
because we are keeping it real for sure. So until next time, folks, I'm Carl,
I'm Tiff.
and we are keeping it real CT
Keep it
in here.
real, real. CT, call me. Call me.